welcome back to Brokers of Secrets. Now, I just spent the last month and a half in Europe, and the things I learned were not only surprising, but shocking. Probably to many of you, and definitely to me. So I'm going to be sharing some of those things and some of the clear ideas, clear understandings that I got to gain from the trip. Because here's the thing. You can't just learn by reading books. You need to put yourself in different environments. You need to be checking, listening, watching other people's experiences and how they live their lives. However, I'll be a little bit more specific. If you really want your life to be upgraded, you need to design them and then go find people that may be already living those lives. And that environment, you need to immerse yourself in that environment where these people are living the life that you're designing. That's precisely why I brought a lot of our clients and students to Europe. Now, let me go from big picture first, and then we'll get to the specifics. The first thing that people told me, our clients, when they arrived to our Monaco event, they said, it is surprising how relaxed people are and how much money is flowing in that region. Because coming from the US, people will notice how much they work, they grind, they hustle, they put in the time, the effort. Now, nothing wrong with working hard, but you got to think deeply. How much of your working hard is simply there to convince yourself that you can have what you want? And how much of your work is actually giving you the results? I'm going to bet you that majority of the people that may be listening right now are putting 80% of their work into whatever they're doing to convince themselves, not to actually produce results. Although you may not know the difference consciously, which is actually producing result and which is not, but I'll tell you, subconsciously, we've seen clients, students over and over and over spending years, if not decades before they found us, putting 80% or even more of their energy, their time, their effort into merely convincing themselves that they are worthy of what they want, that they can have what they want, and that they can begin to resonate and vibrate at the level where the life they want, the life they design, is naturally theirs. See, here's the problem. People think that you need to act as if. Notice the word act as if. That's still acting as if, right? It presupposes two things. You have to take action. There's doing in there. And the other one, it presupposes that you're not there, because as if presupposes you're not there, but you're faking, pretending that you are, right? Acting as if. The problem with that is the moment you start to act as if, you need to convince yourself that you're there. It takes whatever you're doing, that 80% I've been talking about or more, is there to take you from act as if to actually is or are, right? The trick is not to act as if not. Listen to that again. It's not to act as if. That's not actually going to help you. It presupposes you're not there yet, and that there's a lot of action potentially that will be required to get you to feeling worthy or feeling that you're actually there. The trick is to not act as if not. Having, experiencing what you want is not actually difficult. The hard part is people don't know how to resolve their blockage, their resistance. That is actually the hard part. So the hard work that you should be doing should not be acting as if, should not be just grinding, hustling, doing the work to convince yourself. The work that you should be doing should be learning how to resolve. Now, here's the thing. This episode is actually about designing what you want and the sequence or the sequential steps after. And one of those steps is to resolve. But you got nothing to resolve if you don't know what you want. You need to design it. The mind needs a target. Now, this target is not a place or a moment in time necessarily. This target, if I may, this might sound a little vague or intangible, but trust me, this is actually the most tangible concept here. The target is a resonance, a frequency. Now, we're not talking about some woo-woo thing out there where people are like, oh, you just got to vibe like this, or you just got to have this frequency. No, there's a way to be very mathematically precise, which we'll talk about how in a moment. You need to understand that your goal is actually not a place in space or time. It's actually a resonance, a frequency signature. The moment you're able to resonate like that, which does not require time, energy, or effort, it requires you being able to design what you want, so you know the target frequency, and you know how to resolve the blockage so your frequency can actually resonate at that level. The moment you get there, and the sooner you get there, which this is worth your effort and time and energy, but it is not proportionate to physical effort. It's more mental, emotional. It's about knowing where to look and what to follow, what to take action on. It's less about how much, it's about how specifically and what do you do, right? It's about skills and environment more than about how much effort and time and energy you put in, if that makes sense. Now, to simplify, the steps you got to take to get to where you want to be, to replace the physical effort and time that you, if you were to follow conventional so-called work hard wisdom, because look, it's being preached everywhere, because most people don't think deep enough into how specifically you can actually get to that place of resonance. People don't know how to put this into words, but this is what we specialize in and what we spent our time and energy and effort to understand. Now, if you are wondering what are the steps, take a piece of paper out or notepad, whatever it is. These are some very simple yet important steps. And the sequence is important too. Step one is designing what you want. Now, the biggest challenge in society is actually, well, step one, they don't know what they want. Or part one, they don't know what they want. So we solve that problem by having you design what you want. Now, a fair word of warning is that if you start to design what you want, but you only design a part of it or a small part of it, or you just get started but you don't finish, what happens is you will actually do more damage oftentimes than help you. Here's why. Because you'll design something that you want that may pull you a certain direction, but your mind's going to find the path of least resistance to get there. And sometimes that means working harder. So if you ever set a goal and you find yourself just giving up everything, including your health, your relationship, and your life in general, you're doing a partial design. Or if you ever date someone and you're like, this person has some of the attributes that I want, but the rest of them is not what I want, you're doing a partial design. There are specific numbers that you need to actually have in terms of the attributes inside of your design. You need to design a very specific list for the life that you want. If you don't, you're going to actually experience more hardship and challenges. And that's problematic. So that's why people stop designing. After they start to design, they stop because they're like, oh, it's not working. It's working, but it's not working, right? And it's causing them more pain than pleasure. Not enough rewards to justify the effort, right? Then they revert back to the age-old so-called wisdom to just work harder, grind more, right? Thinking that physical effort, and it is true, will compensate for the lack of work they do in their mind. It is true. So step one, if you design precisely what you want, when it comes to the life you want, you need to have at least 25 to 50 attributes. And these attributes need to bring you emotions like gratitude, excitement, joy. They can't just be stuff that you think you should have or your grandma told you you should, right? It can't just be a life that your parents dreamt of for you. It needs to be yours. It can't just be your partner saying, hey, you should live this life. It has to be your vision. Now, when you begin to design it that way, and I'm recommending at least 25, it's not that hard, 25 to 50 attributes, if not more. Now, you don't need to get too precise because, there's a reason for that, and we'll explain it in a bit. But big picture, if you get too precise, you will eliminate a lot of options. But 25 to 50 is a healthy range to start. Some areas of your life you can get more precise, but start with 25 to 50. That includes your career path, the dream job, the dream business partner, and beyond. Design, yeah? Now, some of you might say, I'm already in a job or a company that I enjoy working with, but I only enjoy part of it or partially. You can still design it. It will either change for you or you'll find new opportunities. Things will get better if you get more precise. Now, I would avoid going beyond 100 attributes when you're starting, because as much as you need to get precise, you don't want to eliminate other possibilities that may even be better than what you're dreaming of. Yeah. So 25 to 50. Just trust us on this. We have done a lot of testing. As you do this, you will notice some movement, but this is not the end-all be-all because this is just the beginning. The key, and I would say this is at least 50%, if not 80 to 90% of the lift will be done by resolution. The ability to resolve the blockages, the resistance inside of your subconscious. Now, keep in mind, as I say this, there are no resistance externally. In life, the so-called challenges and resistance that you experience externally is the mirror. It's a mirror. You can't look at the mirror and say, hey, look happy if you're not. Can't say, hey, this mirror version of me needs to look amazing when you don't take care of yourself. You can't say, mirror, smile when you're not willing to smile. The mirror is going to reflect back what's inside. So many people are like, oh, when the mirror smiles, I'll smile. When the mirror looks amazing, I'll be happy. When the mirror gives me $100 million, I'll be feeling grateful. Problem with that is you need to start from inside because remember, it's resonance. So can you resonate and vibrate and feel the frequency that is precisely calibrated and matches the exact outcome that you desire? In simpler words, are you in the same frequency and are you in the same resonance as the person or the version of you that has already achieved what you want? That's why we start with the design, because when you design it, you know exactly what it is. You can give your mind specific attributes to tune itself, right? So it's like turning on the radio. Which channel are you going to go to? If you know exactly what you're looking for, it's easy for you to tune to the right channel. So starting with design and getting specific, then you resolve all the blockages. And as you resolve the blockage, you have this ability, because you've designed now what you want, you have this ability to recognize where the right channel is, what it sounds like, what it feels like, what it looks like. If you don't do the resolution, you may not feel and vibrate and resonate at that level. Therefore, the biggest problem that most people have, that they do, right, is that now they compensate with physical action. This is the moment, because they don't have the design precisely, they don't know how to recognize what's the right channel, and they don't have the ability to resolve the blockages. They find themselves, I'm just going to work harder so I can get there, because that's the trusted path, right? But it's not. Working harder, think of how many people that work hard and don't succeed ever. I mean, granted, we are intelligent beings. Some of us do succeed eventually, just persevering, having the grit, but many don't. do you really want to make that kind of bet? It's like, it's frankly unpredictable. Now, maybe instead of just a radio channel, let's go a step further and give you even more, because many of you probably don't use the old radios anymore. So I'm going to give you another analogy. You put a destination into your navigation system. You're like, okay, I want to go downtown to this restaurant. Yeah. Now, if you put it in the GPS, precisely where it is, it's going to make it easy for you, for the GPS system to take you there. But if you're like, oh, I just want to go to New York, or I just want to go to Berlin, or I just want to go to Shanghai, or I just want to go to Sydney. If you just say the city, the chances of you finding that restaurant is going to be significantly lower, right? Now, imagine not only do you know the destination, you happen to know how it looks like. You happen to know the environment. You happen to know the kind of people that are running the restaurant, that are working there. You happen to know the cross street. You happen to know everything, every little detail about the environment. Now it's easy for you, even easier for you to get there. That navigation system, however, will show you the blockages, the obstacles, and it will calculate how to avoid that. But if you don't have the design of your destination, you can't avoid the blockages. Now, to speed things up, again, it's 50 to 90% of the lift is if you can resolve things. Because look, as much as your navigation can help you get there, your navigation system, your unconscious mind may be too blocked to get there. There may be construction, metaphorically. There may be roadblocks. There may be all kinds of obstacles that are there. And these obstacles are there for various reasons, from ancestral programming, from your parents, how they taught you growing up, what they taught you about money and wealth, about success, about relationships, what you witness, right? If I grew up witnessing my parents fighting all the time, and that was the only version of marriage I ever witnessed, guess what? That's the only version of marriage I know. Unless I resolve that and remove that old blueprint, my design can be wonderful, but my mind won't trust it. My mind will be like, that's not real. I've never seen that. How could you prove that? Can you prove it? Right? It's the human mind strive for what's familiar, not what's exciting, not what's going to bring you joy. It's strive for what's familiar. So if you don't resolve things, and remember, it's not about removing negative emotions, because it is the signal from your navigation system, or it's a communication device. It gives you signals. So we're not there to remove your negative emotions. We're there to help you learn and understand and decode the signals, so the natural negative emotions will subside and disappear, because there's no point for its existence anymore until the next negative emotion shows up. Then you resolve it again. But all of this, thank goodness we have it, is a way to show us how to get to where we want. So embrace all your emotions and learn from all of them. And when you feel pissed off, feel mad, feel, whatever negative emotions, frustrated, bored, well, guess what? It's a signal telling you that what you're familiar with is not going to continue to help you. You need to learn something. And as you learn, guess what? You get closer to your destination. So again, it's about designing and then resolving. When you resolve things, you get closer to your destination. You remove roadblocks. And the biggest thing is, it accelerates your ability to move fast. It accelerates your ability to achieve what you want in less time, less years, less months, less days. I have had people told me that they're doing their 20, 30-year plan. Well, their goals that they have set in their 20 to 30-year plan are happening now, 20 to 30 years earlier. Why? Because they got precise about what they want. They got clarity. And if you don't have clarity about what you want, you need to travel and go to the place that gives you that clarity, where you can see people living the life that you want, where you can witness their behavior, their subtle behaviors, not just the big picture. You need to have very clear visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and even smell and taste, right? Hey, none of our students would have really known how relaxed people are while still accumulating wealth if they never visited places like Monaco, right? Or Switzerland. You need to go to certain places where that is the norm, where taking a vacation and taking care of yourself is the norm. And they still have the abundance that you desire. So it shows you, because these people are not necessarily smarter than you, right? It shows you that you may be doing more just to compensate for your lack of belief in yourself. You may be just working harder, grinding, because for generations, you have been living in lack and scarcity. So you and your nervous system do not trust and are not familiar with wealth, at least the relaxed wealth. So you're working hard to convince yourself, because what? You think that if you work hard, you hustle, you grind, you are now therefore worthy because you've put in the work. That's the playbook that you have downloaded and accepted. That is actually not true. I'm going to tell you right now, if you design, you will cease to have the need to compensate for with physical work, compensate for the lack of work you do mentally. Because why would you have a mind that is so powerful and not use it? Right? Think about it. You're literally only, imagine, right? You have all these tools in your life, but you only choose the hammer to build a house. That would sound ridiculous. You need to use all the tools, all of the access, leverage your mind to decrease the work you have to do in the physical. Now, then you resolve. You need to learn how to become masterful at resolving negative emotions. And the resolution is not to get rid of negative emotions. Of course, they'd be gone, but the goal is to actually resolve and remove resistance. Remove the old blueprint so you can install the design. So as you design, you resolve. As you design, you resolve. So you need to truly become masterful. And how do you become masterful? You need to get training in it, right? Hey, I don't care where you get training in it. I'm telling you, you need to get training, right? Of course, some are better than others at training at this. There are people that will take years and decades to teach you how to do this. And you may need to spend years and decades to come to the realization that it doesn't need that long. Some are much faster, much better at this, right? We're not the only teacher out there in this world that know how to teach it. Granted, we have one of the fastest methodologies that we know of. It takes minutes, sometimes seconds, if you know the methodology, and it's really easy to learn. So we teach our resolution formula in a way that's super easy to learn. But again, it's not, I could even tell you what it is, but the point isn't so much knowing what to do, it's about becoming masterful at it. Becoming masterful requires that you get training. That's barely first step. Step 2 is you need to place yourself in an environment of other masterful practitioners of it. So you get feedback. So you improve with useful feedback, not some feedback that's actually going to drive you the other direction where you don't want to go, right? So you need to have training. You need to have immersion in an environment of other masterful practitioners. And then we need to go right back to the beginning. You need to have designed what you want. And because that design is going to test and see your resolution skills. Because if you have a goal that you designed and you resolve something and you hit the goal, you're going to find that your resolution is extremely rewarding and it brings you something you want, right? So it's important for you to know that this entire cycle of design, train, immerse, right? And get feedback, and then continue to design. This entire cycle helps you become masterful. So participating in not only in a training, but an environment where that is actually conducive to you. And one key thing, People can't have small desires in this cycle, right? If you're joining this to improve, to upgrade, to actually become masterful, you need other people who also have strong, powerful desires. Desires that may be so much bigger than what they previously would have allowed themselves to. Here's the thing. People limit themselves not because they're not intelligent, not because they've been told they're not good enough. It's because they set goals and they don't have ways to resolve the blockages. And their goals are not precise enough, so it costs them more effort. Well, with this cycle that we teach, that we train, and that we help people immerse in, you find yourself removing those resistance. You find yourself removing those blockages. It allows you to feel more motivated naturally because guess what? If you set a goal, you resolve something, the effort is mainly mental and emotional, and then all of a sudden you get your goal. Right? I'm not saying no action needed. You still will take action because guess what? There's a reason that you take action when you have resolved things. That is going to be significantly more effective than actions that you take when you simply aren't convinced that you can have what you want. After you resolved the problems in your mind, the blockages, the actions you take are exponentially more powerful, efficient, and effective. So when you do that, that's like getting in a private jet, getting in a rocket. You can spend an hour in a rocket or you can spend an hour walking. How far would you go walking? Or crawling, worse, right? Versus spend an hour in a rocket. You're going to find completely different results. And one is actually a lot more effortless physically, right? So maybe private jet, because rocket's a little high on the G-force for those of you who are not trained, right? So my point here is really simple. Remember, design, train, and then immersion. That's the whole reason I built Upgrade in the beginning, is so that I myself could have that environment. And this time when we went to Europe, it was precisely for that. I wanted to show those who haven't gone to Monaco, for example, this, not only the looks, the sound, it's everything. It's the entire experience, sensory experience, but also internal. It's also internal, and it's also vibratory. It's resonance. I want people to feel what it feels like to be able to collect and experience wealth and abundance in a relaxed manner. That is something you have to experience in person. I can't describe it. You have to experience it in person. And that is our step 3 in the cycle, right? You design it, you train, and then you go and immerse. That's why I went to Monaco, right? Now, what can you do today to begin the process of change? You design what you want, 25 to 50 attributes. And remember, you design fully. Don't just do 2 attributes and stop, because I would complete all of the design attributes of what you want. Pick one area of your life, right? Maybe it's your career. 25 to 50 attributes. Do it all in 1 week. Design all of it. You will notice things start to shift. And then learn how to resolve it. Maybe join us for a training. Maybe find other ways to resolve. You, regardless, need to learn how to resolve blockages internally. And I'm going to give you a hint. These are, again, messages. If you feel like you're blocked, if you feel like negative emotions are coming up, if you feel like you're unworthy, anything, those negative emotions, signals, blockages, resistance, internally, you set these goals that are big and you design the life you want, you're going to feel resistance because otherwise you would have it already, right? So I encourage you to set something really big and magnificent, and it will make the signal more obvious, more exaggerated, and you're going to feel it. It's going to make it way more detectable. At that point, you need to ask yourself, what can I learn from this so I can let it go? That's really simple, right? And then find yourself in an environment that which you design is natural. This is the bare minimum you need to start doing. In the next episode, however, we're going to talk about specific things that people who are starting to design, who are starting to resolve and immersing themselves, they'll do certain action. For example, they'll try to cut costs, but are they cutting costs or are they acting out of scarcity? There's a difference, right? So we're going to help you distinguish between, is this action actually conducive to my results, to helping me get my results that I want, or am I just acting out of scarcity? Yeah. And we'll talk about, hey, if William, you're saying this is about resonance, so how I feel matters, right? Because my emotions is how I can actually detect whether my resonance is on point or not. Because if I feel perfectly congruent and I feel joy, I feel pleasure, it's a lot more aligned than if I feel negative. Because if I feel negative, there's resistance. So we're going to actually break that all down to explain to you, hey, how do you understand the signals? What's going on? What's really going on? So that you know exactly what to do in as many situations as possible. So we'll see you in the next episode.